For those of you who don't know us, Csaba and I were born and raised in Hungary when it was still a communist country. We came to the US as political refugees in 1989 and raised our kids here in Pittsburgh. It was also here that the Lord extended His mercy to us and we got saved. A few years later, He called us to dedicate our lives to building His kingdom through ministry. Our calling is to take the gospel back to Europe that used to be the Christian continent, but in the last several decades it turned into being the most atheist continent. There are 44 native national languages spoken in Europe. The Bible is translated into most of these languages, but nobody reads them. And there is very little, if any, evangelical literature available in those languages. The Lord called us to write gospel tracts specifically addressing the post-Christian, atheist European mindset. We find help translating them into those languages, then print them and give them to mostly small, true Bible teaching churches in Europe so they can start doing outreach. We also give them to large international aid organizations that give them to people along with the aid that they are giving them. The last couple of years, each year, the Lord helped us to reach about 40,000 people in Europe with His gospel. Our calling is to produce these special tracts, but every time we go to a mission trip, the Lord blesses us with many opportunities to join churches and organizations to do some hands-on street evangelism also. Even though street evangelism is not our calling nor our gift, truly, all we need is to be obedient and say yes to the Lord. And every time we are obedient and step out of our comfort zone and talk to people about Christ, it ends up feeding and growing the fire in our hearts for building His kingdom. This summer, we didn't think that we could go at all, but all of a sudden the Lord made it happen. So we went with very little planning, but that way it was even more obvious to us that He was in control in everything that happened over there. And Andy was also able to join us for a week. Whenever we were on mission trips in Hungary before, Csaba's dad was our driver, taking us from meeting to meeting. This was the first year that he wasn't able to. And the way only the Lord can, He made it happen that the weeks we were there this summer were the last weeks of his life. It was a great gift from the Lord that we were able to be there for him. But in the meantime, we were also busy with heaven's business. We again joined organizations like European Initiative, Equippers, Danube International Church, Golgotha Budapest and Golgotha 11, Késői Eső Church and other organizations, and participated in their events and street evangelism. Some of the organizations that we serve with, they hold large group evangelism events. They go to a busy part of town, to a big square, and first they perform some dance with music, then a short skit, and then they talk to people one-on-one about the story of the skit, and of course the story leads into the gospel. Sometimes we also use props and small gifts like a candy bar or a can of soda that is named Hell, actually. So we can start conversations with people. Of course, we tell them about God's love for them and give them some gospel tracts too. We always learn a lot from these groups and are incredibly blessed by every day we spend out in the streets with them. But we also do street evangelism on our own, which is always a little scary at first. But there is no feeling that is more fantastic and humbling at the same time than when we can make a true connection with a person and are able to tell them about Jesus and the hope that they can have in him. And of course, everywhere we go, we spread as many gospel tracts as we can. Sometimes by a method that some people call guerrilla witnessing, we put tracts into hundreds of mailboxes, under windshield wipers of parking cars, and leave them at other places where people pick them up even without knowing that they did. During this trip, we also had a chance to go to Italy to connect with Calvary Chapel of Padova. Pastor Umberto and his wife Sarah, they are leading a small congregation and would love to have a group of Americans filled with the Lord's fire to visit them and help them with outreach. There are 8 other Calvary chapels in Italy also, and now there are 25 Calvary chapels or Golgothas in Hungary, which is an explosion. A few years ago, we only had a couple. Most of these are newly planted small groups still, but they are true Bible teaching churches. They need all the help they can get with outreach. So come and love Europe with us, maybe even this upcoming summer.